All right, I wanted to do a video. I wish I remembered all both topics I was going to do, so we're going to stick to the most important topic. And this came up as I was touring the Wonders of Wildlife, and then went to, or tried to go to Top of the Rock, which is also owned by Johnny Morris. And Johnny Morris is the CEO of Bass Pro. They ended up buying out Cabela's. Sport hunter, at least his son is, I think he was too, but also getting into conservation of some of the lands in the Ozarks because there had been some water degradation and things like that going on. The philosophical question, so there's kind of two things. The first question is, at what point is buying up land too much? And the second question is, should it be to where people have to pay just to have access to nature? And we're not talking like $2-3. We're talking, for example, Top of the Rock, to be able to do the cave trail and all, it was like $60 some if you include parking. And it's like, how many people are going to access? I mean, there were quite a people there. They were paying it. I don't know if they're doing that or because you can ride around in a golf cart to see it. But it made me ponder, in this era where we have big hedge fund companies, foreign investment, buying up all the land, and the challenge of being in British common law precedent when it comes to real estate and land acquisition, that it's harder to put conditions on what can sell. So one person can buy all of it. There's not really anything in law and legal that would do that. And even if a state did pass something like that, other than making lands federal, which was a precedent under Teddy Roosevelt and beyond, there isn't any recourse for it. And so the ethical question is, should people have access to nature? And is having access to nature a right? And case law and land ownership is like, well, it depends on the land, was the legal answer to the question. And then I'm going to intersect that with, there's a case study when I was back in grad school on public restrooms, public quote unquote. And in places and these are Western societies, and even a couple of Eastern societies, I think even Japan was included in the study, if I remember right, where you have to pay like 25 cents, 50 cents, $1 to go use the restroom. Compare that to a free city park restroom. Name a town, anywhere. Most of those city park restrooms end up being trash. A mall restroom ends up looking like garbage, and people just make a mess way too often. But in this study, it showed that when you pay for the restroom, people tend to be cleaner, because then there's a fear that the rates are going to go up. So that was the correlation that came up in that research that I got to cover in grad school. The bigger ethical question is gobbling up all this land. So there's kind of two things. Here's this man that's doing a lot of conservation, but he's a billionaire at this point. And then making it where it's like you have to pay to play to access the land because he's showing off all of his assets. And essentially that's kind of the shadow side of it. Yes, there is an altruism to preserving land and keeping it as natural as possible, even though some of those trails not as natural as kind of trails have been made, so to speak. But if this trend continues, because the Ozarks, he owns a lot of land, and it's just him. And county like Taney and Stone County, like, yeah, go for it, kind of thing, because the counties don't want to have any more parks because that's budgetary, and they're small government, so they don't want to have all that and see that, and very strong on private ownership in general. And juxtapose that to Oregon. Oregon has state parks. Some of those parks you have to pay $5, but that's really the pay because you drove in kind of thing, more than you're paying to access the trail. So it's a little different nuance, but in application, it's kind of still the same. It's still a sort of pay to play, but still reasonably priced, so to speak. And the bigger concern, as we have all these constructs, so like cities now, you got the cell infrastructure on the water towers, we're building denser cities. There's not, in planning theory, there's not a lot of consideration on people as we have an increasing number of populations that quote unquote are neurodivergent, and being in the places with lots of vibration, lots of noise, even the inaudible noise that's beyond our hearing range, it's still a form of noise. And then you have all those inputs into the water, cell infrastructure, telecommunications, internet, Wi-Fi, what have you, all going through that water. The words of the water matter, or words going into the water matter, and it sticks. And you have to then have more words to kind of flesh it out. I mean, and I would invite you to look at Dr. Emoto's book, talking about the study that they did in Osaka, Japan, where this pond became super scummy. It was becoming an environmental hazard just to even be near it. And then they started focusing on the word love. And so they did a baseline. They did what the crystals looked like when they froze that water. And it's essentially no crystal, ragged crystal. Focused the word love. No other changes to the environment. So it's like it was the same kind of environmental conditions during the whole time of this 4-month study. The lake cleared, no algae, and the water crystals were more perfect. Nothing else fundamentally changed. So that puts that you can put inputs into water and then you ingest that without knowing it. That's going to have an impact on you. And so that's kind of the bigger question. And even with some of the nature trails I've seen in the Midwest, I've even seen this like on some of the trails in Vancouver, Washington, when I lived up in Portland, where in those trails, they build it where also have a utility easement for the high tension power lines. And so you're having that electromagnetic energy in you. So, and then what impact that's having to the trees and ecosystems, because it seems like near there, the plants and trees are not as healthy. They don't look as vibrant as ones away from it than like true wilderness, where the biosphere has not been disrupted as much. The mycoprotein and the trees, they've all kind of anchored this groupthink immune system and so there's a healthier component to that. So it's kind of thinking about both of those things and the ethical consideration of one person owning too much land and then making it where people have to pay to access is a bigger philosophical question that we're going to have to address. And there's a lot of people, oh, we don't need nature, we just need to be in cities. Well, that's not everyone is designed to be in a city. And as I've looked in the human design and in my own human design, that's the last place I should be is in a city. It's like I'm supposed to be in the mountains. And it's like, and that's why anecdotally, I didn't look back at the past when I was going on hikes at 10,000 feet and whatnot in Arizona. And the time I went to Seven Falls in Colorado, played tennis at Cripple Creek at 10,100 feet. I felt fantastic. My breathing was fine. And it was just like a very different energy. Then go back to the valleys and cities and where things are more stagnant. Just, it's not for me. So really thinking on the lines of like, from a planning perspective, how do we build so you have that balance, you're feeling like you're in nature, and if you have to share a wall with a neighbor, how do you mitigate the vibration so those energetics don't mix if those energetics are not congruent? So I fear that looking at it from the mental health and zoomed out perspective, as we're in a very mentally focused society, that we're going to end up having increased mental illness, increase even violence and self-deletion and all that. And it's like, and looking at places I live, like Portland and Kansas City, it's like, yeah, gun violence is bad and people get really angry in the heat. It's like because there's no break in the energetics, there's constant noise. And that also affects the psyche. And then the environments and the building materials, and is there mold in the wall? I mean, all of these things can impact your nervous system and your immune system and the negative impacts that's going to have on people. Now, there's some people, they want to live in a high rise in a big city and they're fine. That's great. That's like for those people, especially if they're human design environments markets, that's where they should be. But trying to get back to, at the individual level or even collective level, what's going to maximize health, what's going to maximize well-being, and how do we do this in a voluntaristic, free will sort of way, and getting away from controlling people, getting away from, identity politics. And and I'm just going to combine, because the second part I think was on identity politics. So look at the two. Like, you've got Team Blue, like you got Portland and Eugene, you've got these nonprofits with these altruistic missions, and the name, but it's all in this identity politic. It's like, oh, this is what liberals think. And then you've got like Branson, Missouri, and that area, you've got your Bass Pro, your outdoor store, lots of patriotism, what some will call Christian nationalism. It's like, there is some of that, but it's not to the hyperbole that I've seen of one person doing a post on Branson. And that kind of gets to that next point. Be very careful on projecting your belief thoughts or what you perceive the other person to be on them in that us versus them mindset, because that is like, that creates further divide. And when you look at the big picture in government and how dysfunctional it is, and they haven't been serving us in a long time, and they want us to keep doing that. So just put that in your back pocket. And these identity politics is like, oh, here we've got God's Gun and Country, we've got the Trump store, and over here we've got Mercy Corps and Planned Parenthood, and yada yada yada. And even the names of the stores fit the identity of the politic group. I don't think overall that's healthy. It's like, and for most people in this country, and it's hard to do and I used to be an insider in politics, so it's like I got to see this up close on the quote unquote blue side, and lived in red states, so I got to see that piece on the quote unquote red side. Most people could give two rats behinds on politics overall. It's just the noise of the political activists that are focusing so much on the trivial. Oh, it's like this, and it's like, and keeping up appearances, and even there is this component of this God complex among, when I was an insider in politics, on the blue side. And on the red side, it's just like, oh, we must all believe in the same God, and and support. And now it's like, support Israel is part of, but both parties really do it. But I'm just doing that more as an example to the thing. But in the end, it doesn't serve any of us. Where's the economic plight? And when we've divorced farm and labor and blue collar hard work from economics, and then we focus on identity politics over economic well-being and making sure people can raise a family, and is the environment conducive to raising children? Those are important pieces for surviving society. Not everyone wants to be around children, but in my observation of places, the places where people are bringing up children tend to be a little more warm, a little more friendly, a little more grounded. And there's still dysfunction. Don't get me wrong, because we are in a very dysfunctional society at the macro level, and that filters down. I think in all this, I just want us to think about what are the things that are bring each one of us at the individual level to where we're self-sufficient, and that we have the things that we need that aren't substances that can renew and regenerate us and get us away from pharmaceutical medicine and all of these systems of control. I think that is the biggest thing I want to spark discussions on, because I think we're going to have to think third way. It's like some of the solutions to dealing with this, it's like probably not going to be peaceful. And I really don't want that. I want us to transcend all of that and just get to, we let people live their lives. We let people raise their children how they want to be. We mind our own business on how someone does something else, and focus on those big pictures to make sure we have a place we can all coexist and not be at each other's throats, and transcend the algorithms that are all designed knowing that we scroll more, we stay on there, we consume more based on negative emotion, because there's a piece in the mammalian brain that is perceived in real threats that get kicked in. And for those of us like myself that have hypervigilism, it really just makes it like constant. So me getting out here recording videos this way, I can be a lot more clear-minded, more thoughtful on how I'm saying this. So in the end, I think I've covered both videos in one on this. I'm hoping this starts a discussion, your experiences of that, and how do we transcend identity politics? I think that is the biggest question, and how can we unify together on important things that bring us economic and actual stability, not just trivial, I'm right, you're wrong. It's like, because I think that's where real freedom is going to be at this point. So let me know if you have any questions or comments, and hopefully this sparks a discussion that I think is well needed on the macro level. And thanks for listening.